Alright, I was going to tell this message on faith moves forward. So, we went over, last time or in one of the last few videos, but I told that you are a spirit, you have a soul, which is your mind, will, and emotions, and you live in a physical body. In the Greek, just to back it up, in the Bible, it's the soul, word for soul is suke, which is where psychology comes from, the study of psychology of the mind. The spirit is pneuma, and it means breath, and your flesh is sarx or soma. Well, there's a bird out there for some reason, just trying to be annoying. But anyways, alright, well, I'll read this story out of Matthew 14, starting at 22. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship, and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitude away. That's after he had fed the 5,000. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up to the mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was up there alone. And the disciples, but now the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. So the disciples were out there, and they've been paddling and going nowhere because the wind's blowing against them. And there's another story that I'd mentioned when the storm and Jesus calmed the waves, but it happened again. And his disciples were out there, and they're paddling against the waves, and that sea was pushing them again. The enemy sends a storm or tries to hinder you, not just a storm, but in different ways in your life. He's trying to hinder you and trying to slow down your progress, especially when you get a word from the Lord, or you're trying to, walk by faith and not by sight. Well, he's going to bring up everything in the natural for your sight to, discourage you. So, Jesus was walking out there on the water, on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It's a spirit," and they cried out for fear. Anyone who sees someone walking on the sea and, it's against the laws of nature, you're going to think, man, that's a ghost out there, or, an angel or a spirit of some sort. But straightway Jesus spoke unto them, saying, "Be of good cheer. It is I, be not afraid." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water." A lot of people don't realize the reason Peter, asked, "If it be thou, bid me come," because in the old days, especially, there's a lot of tales of siren type things, or you see someone walking or spirit out there, and it's coming to warn you that your ship's about to sink. So Peter, is getting ahead of it and being, if it's the Lord, bid me come, and I'll get out of this boat, But that's just a sidetrack, that's old fisherman's tales. But so he said, "If it be thou, bid me come on the water." Well, he kind of put Jesus in the spot because it's him. So what's he going to say, So he said, "Come." When Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid and began to sink. And this is a picture of when you're walking on the water. It's a picture of you walking by faith. As long as you keep your eyes on Jesus. And I've said in past videos or past preaching that Jesus, as John said, is the Word. made flesh. The Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word came down and dwelt amongst us. So you got to keep your eyes on his words. And even this, of course, the devil, the winds, it has nothing to do with walking on the water, the winds, but what it's showing is you'll be walking above the circumstances. You'll be walking, on the water, as it were, like above your troubles, above all these problems and the enemy's attacks in your life. As long as you keep your eyes on Jesus, you'll be above that. But he got afraid. He got his eyes on the wind and off Jesus, off the Word, off the promises. And he started sinking. But he cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand. Praise God. We fail sometimes, and you get into fear or whatever, a lot of people, and I've done it, everyone's done it, in their walk. You get your eyes off the Word, you get your eyes off the promises, and you start sinking. You start, oh no, what am I going to do, But we got to keep and realize we got to run back and get our eyes back on God. And he did in that way. He's sinking, but he's saying, Lord, save me. And Jesus is, God's merciful, and he knows, So he stretched forth his hand and caught him and said unto him, "O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt?" And little faith isn't like your faith is small. It just means your length. You started out good, but you let your faith go. And when they were coming to the ship, the wind ceased. And they that were in the ship came and worshipped Jesus, saying, "Of a truth, thou art the Son of God." So, when we're in these problems, we got to get our eyes on the Lord. And when you start really working or walking by faith, it invites a challenge. Even when Jesus talked about sowing the seed, he says that some seed, fell on shallow ground. And it sprang up, quickly, but because of the shallowness and having no root in themselves, when persecution came, they fell away. And it's a picture of, we got to get this word into our heart. That's what he's talking about, is the word's the seed, and it gets on the ground of your heart. And as I've said before, you got to get it through your mind. That's the entrance. The entrance to your heart is your eyes and your ears, what you're hearing and what you're seeing. So we got to constantly be filling ourselves. The same word, it's the same phonetically. In Hebrew, it's lechem, and it means the same as to feed or to fight. And God put that, it's one of those things, God has a verse too. It says, "It's the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings to seek it out." And we're supposed to be, seeking these things out. And, like I said, we're chewing and digesting the word, It's a picture. And that's why Jesus called himself the bread of life. And then he says, in Proverbs, that my words are life to them that find them, health to all their flesh. The entrance of my word brings light. He also says my words are spirit and they're life. So so what do you do when you get in these times when all the circumstances are coming against you, or in the natural, because that's what you're tempted to look at, to be, like we said in other ones, to be carnally or to be spiritually minded, or to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. So we got to get out of the carnal mind. We can't be looking. We walk by faith and not by sight. Our sight, our physical senses. We got to walk by faith and what God says, and walk above this reality, and we'll manifest out of the heart flows the issues of life. So you got to get your mind off of this world, and it takes focus to get it on to what God says. In Hebrews, 11, it talks about Abraham, counted not his body, which is now dead, but, believed God to the promise, what he had spoken. And I can go and show other examples like that. We could talk about Caleb, and when he went into the land and he was ready to take that mountain, he told Joshua, that I'm as strong this day as when Moses sent me to spy out the land. And he goes on to talk about that he had been given a word by God, and it's only one word, but Moses had told him, because he had wholly followed the Lord his God, that the land where he had trod, where his feet had been, is going to be his, as an inheritance. So he held on to that word for like 40 years in the wilderness, and it kept him strong, that word. He says that word is, my words are life to them that find them, and health to all their flesh. That one word had the power to keep Caleb, for them years. He's 85 years old, and he's versing the sons of Anak, and he defeats them up on the mountain. He says, give me my mountain. He takes that mountain, as they do the conquest, and it's given to him. I forgot what the mountain was called, but I'll read that later. I have another teaching on that. But so what do we do when all these troubles are starting? We focus. We get our mind on the word. And I'll read. Let's go to Psalms 27. Okay. And this is David. And he's talking about a lot of this. David had some really hard times when Saul turned on him because of an evil spirit. You're in God's will. You are anointed to be the next king. I'm sure when you're younger, you think, when he was younger, he thought, man, I'm going to be the next king. I'm going to serve under Saul, and then then it'll pass to me. Well, the devil's always trying to throw up roadblocks, and get you to quit. Like it says in Hebrews 10:35, and I'll read that here in a little bit, but he says, cast therefore not away your confidence, which has a great recompense of reward. So you got to keep your confidence in God, in his promise, what you've heard from him, if he spoke to your spirit, or by his word is the main thing. He speaks to all of us through his word, and he makes these promises. Well, we'll read this Psalms 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though a host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident. One thing I desired of the Lord, and that will I seek after, that I might dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty, and to inquire of his temple. For in the time of trouble he shall hide me. In his pavilion, in the secret of his tabernacle, he shall hide me. He shall set me upon a rock. And now shall my head be lifted up above my enemies round about me. Therefore will I offer in his tabernacle sacrifices of joy. I will sing, yea, I will sing praises unto the Lord. And this is a secret. In the middle of your trouble, don't lose your joy. The joy comes not from your circumstances, but you filled yourself with his word, and these promises that he says that he'll hear you when you cry. That he'll, like when you cry out to him, he'll hear you, he'll deliver you. And that he's got a plan, and if he told you, just like he told the disciples, go to the other side, that means you're going to make it. You're going to make it to the other side. If you hold on to what he said go to the other side. It's God, telling you this. And of course, the enemy's going to throw up something to make you fear. Because if you fear, when I've gone over that, it opens a door into your life. You're the vessel, and you put it out of your heart. And if you let fear into your heart, it's gonna manifest around you. And then that's what the devil's hoping for, is that he'll throw a rope to you, but you don't have to grab onto it. And the rope is that thought, and that, the spirit of fear sending that thought of, oh, you're going to fail. Oh, this isn't going to work out. Oh, God, what you heard isn't real. He's going to send the circumstances to, hopefully, he's hoping that you will grab onto that and manifest it with your mind, and it gets into your heart, and you meditate on that. Just like how you can meditate on God's word, and it'll cause your way to prosper. Well, you meditate on the devil's word, and it's going to have the opposite effect. So, don't lose your joy. Praise is one of the biggest weapons we have. It's praising means you're laboring to enter into that rest that you believe God. You praise, out of your heart, abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, and even if it's not in your heart yet, you meditate on his word day and night. That's what it says in Proverbs and in Joshua 1:8. And it'll start to manifest and get into you. It's got to get into your heart. You got to line up. We got to get our mind, our soul lined up with our spirit and our heart. And if once you get those two lined up, you'll overcome your flesh and you'll overcome your circumstances. And the Spirit of God will be able to move in you. You'll be able to hear. Your mind will start quiet. You get control of your mind. Cast down imaginations, every high thought that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, the knowledge of Christ, which is the Word. So, and David didn't have, he had the books of Moses and stuff, but he didn't have the full revelations like we have that from the apostles and Jesus. So he got a little worried. So he says, when thou said, seek my face, my heart said unto thee, thy face will I seek. So he's trying to listen to his spirit, and he's a fallen man. Before the cross, no one could have the Holy Spirit then. It could come rest on them, it could speak to them, but it wasn't in them. So they didn't have the same relationship that we have. They were still in their sin. They didn't have, the sacrifice hadn't been, they had an IOU, that's why they do the sacrifices every year. It was like you showing your faith by trusting God to do those sacrifices, and God would count it unto you, like in Hebrews 11, unto righteousness. He would count your belief. But they weren't redeemed, And David said that later, blessed is the one man whom the Lord does not count his sins against him. But he said that his heart, he's going to seek the Lord's face. And then he gets worried, obviously. And he says, hide not thy face far from me. Put not thy servant away in anger. God. And then he says, thou hast been my help. Leave me not, neither forsake me, O God of my salvation. Well, God promises he'll never leave nor forsake you. Just because you don't feel him doesn't mean he's not with you. Your mind is because your soul is troubled. The troubled waters are your soul. You've allowed the enemy to sink his word in, or you've grabbed onto something, and your soul in that trouble is trying to warn you that there's a problem. Your soul works like a gauge. You got dummy lights on your car, or little gauges that say, oh, you're getting low, or oh, this, it's getting hot, or you're getting low on fuel. And your soul, when you start getting that troubledness, pause, take an inventory of what's going into your mind. Focus on the word, focus on peace. I've said we're supposed to be at peace. As a Christian, your life should be from a place of peace. So when you're out of peace, realize, where's your mind going? Everything that gets into you has to go through your eyes and your ears. You're filling yourself with these thoughts, and spiritually the devil speak to you too. But you got to realize and take every thought captive, and then that's how you get peace practically, is you have to cast down. It says the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. We have to start exercising that control over our mind. And then you'll start to get over and master your emotions by focus. It takes focus, and it's not easy at first, but it will become easy as you start to practice it. It says cast your care upon the Lord because he cares for you. So he goes on, David goes on to say, when my father and mother forsake me, then the Lord will take me up. Teach me thy way, O Lord. Lead me in a plain path because of my enemies. Deliver me not over to the will of mine enemies, or false witnesses that are risen up against me, and such as breathe out cruelty. David, and I mean, you can't blame him. He was being persecuted by Saul. His men went with him, but he had went out, and there's multiple things that have happened to him, but he was living in a cave at one time, He was helping the Philistines, fighting for the Philistines even, because he got rejected by his people, as it were, Saul. The king rejected him. And, is the devil that's orchestrating this. So he went out in the wilderness, basically, and he's leading his men. Well, and there's even, if we read the Bible, there's a time, too, he come home. And his men come home from out, doing battle or whatever. And they'd come and taken everyone in the village captive. And the people wanted to stone him. So he had dealt with some real serious problems. And that's what he's praying, to lead him the Lord to lead him in a plain path because of his enemies. Deliver him not over to the will of his enemies. And then there's false witnesses. There's always people, the devil gets people all stirred up to speak against you and try to make, lies up about you, especially as you get in a place of leadership. Well, he said at the end of this, it tells you how to overcome some of these things. And you hold on to these verses like this. He said, I would have fainted unless I had believed to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And he says, wait on the Lord, be of good courage. He shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. So, and God says that. He says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. God's trying to get it to your mind that I'm not a man that should lie. Wait on me. Take the time. Get your mind focused on my word, and I will deliver you. I've got this all planned for you. When you're walking into his plan, realize he sends an angel before you to make your path, like he said in Exodus. He goes before you to fight for you. Keep your peace. You shall keep your peace. He's trying to tell you, keep your eyes on what I said. Keep your mind on my words. Don't look at the circumstance. There's giants in the land. You start walking in faith, there's going to be giants in the land. And they're going to come against you. So, I'm going to start. I have to restart this because I'm running out of time. But, realize when you really start walking in faith, the enemy, you're inviting a battle. And we're going to look at that here in a second. So, I guess I'm going to have to stop this one.